Hi everyone, I am Jaden and I create educational content on how to break into the animation industry. So if you'd like to stick around for more tips on pursuing a career in animation, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with anyone that you may think may benefit from it. Today's topic is going to be how to optimize your LinkedIn profile to seek a job in the animation industry. So I'd like you to think of your LinkedIn profile as an extension of your resume where you can elaborate on your skills and experiences. Using my own profile as an example, we'll go over each section with suggestions on how to make your profile stand out to animation studio recruiters. So first and foremost, here at the top, I designed this nice banner for the top of my profile. It's just a way to make it pop and really stand out. Here I have my name on the bottom right corner, and then I've also included my online handle for all my social media platforms. So I use the same handle everywhere. And another thing I also wanted to point out here, you'll notice that my profile picture is a self-portrait that I drew of myself rather than an actual photo. Typically on LinkedIn, you want to have like a professional looking profile photo of yourself, but because we're in a more creative and artsy industry, it's actually not frowned upon to have art of yourself as your LinkedIn profile photo. So this is totally acceptable. I also use the same icon across all of my social media platforms, so I also do it as part of my branding for consistency's sake. And then right over here, I've got your name. You have the option of adding pronouns if you'd like to, which is pretty nice. And right below that, you kind of have this like subtitle header that you can add under your name. I would suggest putting the discipline that you're pursuing. So for example, if you want to be a board artist, you could put storyboard artist or storyboard revisionist under your name. Or if you're looking to do like production or like character design, just any discipline that you're pursuing, I would put that as the title under your name. So when recruiters look at your page, they can tell what it is exactly that you're looking for. Over on the right-hand side here, you're going to have your most recent work experience along with your education show up in this corner. And over here, you'll notice there is a bunch of different hashtags under your name and title header as well. This will be the topics that you tend to post or share. So because I talk a lot about animation and storyboarding and job opportunities, these are the hashtags that appear most frequently on my page. And of course, down here, you can put your location. If you have a link to your portfolio or your work that you'd like to include here as well, you can edit the text that appears. So it's not just like a web link. You can make it look a little bit nicer. In my case, because I'm pursuing production, I don't really show a portfolio for that discipline. So instead, I have my YouTube channel linked because I still talk about production and career focused topics. So I've chosen to share that there. And of course, here you'll be able to see your number of followers and your connections as well. As you're going along filling out your profile, aside from these like visually appealing sections like your profile photo and your banner, there's an option here to add more sections as you're building it up. So if we click on add profile section, here are additional suggestions for how you can kind of like beef up your profile page. So of course you want to add your education, if any. You want to add positions, which are all the different like work experiences that you've held in the last couple of years. And another feature that was added during the pandemic that I noticed that was new is this career break. So I know there are folks that either got laid off or they've had like hiatuses in between jobs and gone like months and months and months on like a job hunt, or sometimes like health issues arise and they need to take like a little breather to take care of their health. So they've added this section where if you've had any of those like lapses between jobs, you can add a career break on your profile as well. It's totally understandable. We're all human. Shit happens, and it's totally okay to add this if you've gone through that. And of course, you also have the option to add skills. So just to elaborate on this a little bit further, skills can either be, different skill sets that you have, like for example, video editing or project management or public speaking, or it could be specific software that you're familiar with. So, this could be like the Adobe suite, the Microsoft Office suite, Storyboard Pro, or Toon Boom Harmony, etc. So you can either generally put all the skills and software that you know in this section, or you'll have the ability to add skills and software for each individual job experience section on your profile. So going back to this menu, this is just your core stuff, the basics. These are all things you should absolutely have on your LinkedIn profile, because again, you're thinking of this as an extension of your resume. You're going to put your job experiences, the skills and software that you have, and while you should be tailoring your resume to each job you apply for, there should still be some consistencies between your LinkedIn and your resume that match up. So make sure that kind of matches across the board as closely as you can. And of course, here there's some additional sections that you can add. So under recommended, this is a really, really great way to stand out to recruiters as well for animation. If there's any specific licenses or certifications you've gotten, like if you've gotten certified in any of the Adobe suite softwares, if you've gotten certified in any Toon Boom softwares, again, Storyboard Pro, Harmony, Producer, etc. Or if you've taken any courses, not just in school, but if you've taken courses outside of school, like, those online core classes like Storyboarding 101 or like Intro to Animation, on platforms like maybe Project City or Coursera, any type of online courses that you've taken, you can also add that here. So at least when recruiters look at your profile, they can see what courses you've taken, what other certifications you might have, and that'll further your credibility and being knowledgeable in those skills and softwares listed previously. And then lastly, we have this section down here for additional. This is completely supplemental and depends on your personal experiences, but this is also another great way to kind of fluff up your resume too, right? So here we have volunteer experience. This is something that I elaborated on very, very briefly in one of my previous videos when I talked about networking etiquette. But one of the ways that you can gain some experience, and also it's just a great way to give back to your community, is to get involved in different organizations. So for example, I'm Latino, so I'm part of Latinx in animation, so I can speak to my volunteer experience in this section by the work I do in creating flyers for their social media platforms, being involved in community events, etc. And also if you've done any mentorships with these different organizations, like again, using myself as an example, I did the showrunner mentorship with Women in Animation last year. That's also something that can go in this section. So again, there's tons of organizations you can get involved with. There's Latinx in animation, Women in Animation, there's Animasians, Asian Queens in Animation, Rise Up, Black and Animated. There's so many. So definitely look into that if you can. As for publications, if you're a student that, let's say, your thesis film or your thesis project was entered into a film festival, or maybe you had an article written about your project, this is a great way to highlight that and shout that out. And of course, you can also add projects, again, whether it was a capstone project that you may have completed in school as a student, or it's a project, like a personal passion project or a story that you're working on in your spare time, you can also add this as well. For honors and awards, again, going back to if you've ever had your project entered in some kind of like festival, if you've won any awards, even if you've received a scholarship for when you were going to school to pay for your tuition. These are all great things that you can add in the honors and awards section. As for test scores, again, this is a more creative industry, so I don't think that holds a lot of weight or importance, so I wouldn't fret too much about this. Of course, if you know multiple languages, that can be totally useful in different studios. So if you do know more than one language, definitely include that. And again, with organizations, this kind of goes back to the volunteer experience piece. If you are an affiliate or a member of any organizations, definitely add that in as well, or any causes that you may have contributed to within those organizations. Another thing I wanted to point out is this open to button right over here. So I know a lot of folks have been using this, especially now while looking for work. But in this section, you have the option of kind of flagging your audience to let them know that you're either open to looking for new job opportunities, that you have specific services that you can provide if you're an independent artist or you're freelancing so that clients can find you, or if you yourself are looking to hire people for your own company, you can also highlight that on your profile as well. So just wanted to point that out. And of course, if you click on more, you'll have a couple of more options here. So if you ever get around to networking on LinkedIn and connecting with people, which you should be doing, if you ever wanted to send your profile as a message or show your LinkedIn to someone, there's a very easy way to do that right over here. You can also export it as a PDF, so it'll kind of save it like in a resume format for you already, or you can build a resume using a template based on the information you've already pre-filled on your LinkedIn. So these are all really, really useful. I would definitely explore that as well. So moving on a little bit further down, even though this part right here doesn't necessarily have to do with optimizing your profile, as you'll notice, this says that this is private to me, but only I can see this. This is more for your own knowledge, your eyes only. But as you start to post more on your LinkedIn, especially if you're looking to create content on this platform, this is the section where you'll be able to view your analytics. So here you can see how many people have been looking at your profile, if you've posted something, how many impressions that post has made, or if it's making rounds, if it's getting engagement, and how many times you've appeared in a search when people maybe search your name, how often you show up in the results. So I think this is also a nice little tidbit that is helpful for you internally. And on that similar note, you also have this other section down here for resources. Once again, if you plan on maybe creating content on this platform, you can turn on creator mode to help you get discovered, showcase what you're posting, and get access to creator specific tools. But we'll be diving into that at a later time. So the next section that we're going to talk about is the featured section. So right here, you can pin certain posts to show up in this section of your profile. So this is really great if, once again, you have a portfolio, something visual that shows your work, and you want recruiters to be able to find it easily. Aside from having that link at the very top part under your name, you can also add a clickable link to it down here that'll have this like thumbnail photo for them to look at. So here, because I've been looking for opportunities in production, I highlighted this post that I made. I made this like cute little graphic highlighting the skills I have and stuff, and I wanted this to show at the top. I also have the link to my YouTube channel as well as a link to my portfolio. I'm not exactly sure how many things you can pin at the top. Like, I don't know if there's a limit, but I know that to see the rest of them, you do have to click on this arrow to expand on that a little bit further. So only the first 3 will really visibly show on your profile page. So just keep that in mind when you're pinning those different posts, what order you put them in, depending on what you want people to actually see first. And of course, if we move a little bit further down, this is just going to show your most recent activity. So again, LinkedIn is a professional platform where you're seeking job opportunities, you're looking to connect with people. So be mindful of the type of things that you're posting, the way that you comment on other people's stuff, how you engage, and make sure that you don't give off a bad impression because your activity does show up here in this section. So, just be mindful of that. I mostly just like repost and share a lot of stuff that I see on my feed. Every once in a while, I'll post something. Like recently, I posted a drawing earlier this afternoon, but this is where your activity will show. Now, down here, we have our About section. So I'm going to expand this just a little bit. I know this can be a little bit tricky for people sometimes because it's not always easy to talk about yourself, but your About Me is your opportunity to kind of let a little bit of your personality shine through. So think of this as a very condensed kind of like cover letter section of your LinkedIn profile. So in my case, I mention all the different skill sets and disciplines that I am like well versed in, that I like to mentor others, that I have a YouTube channel where I make content, that I do volunteer work. So here you can speak a little bit to maybe stuff that you're currently working on, as well as your goals and aspirations. And speaking of which, I totally forgot to mention this earlier. I'm just going to go back to the top real quick. Notice here under my name, I had put like future showrunner because even though I'm pursuing production, I want to do show running at some point in the future. I've been told that the word aspiring is a big fat no word. So rather than putting like, aspiring showrunner or aspiring character designer, just put the title of the thing that you want to pursue or the discipline that you are focusing on instead of the word aspiring. Just totally take that word out. I've just been told it's not good. Because, if you're honing your craft and you're working towards something, you're actively doing it. You're not aspiring it. You're actually already doing it. So just don't use the word aspiring is all I'm saying. So I know I derailed a little bit going back to the topic of the About Me. Again, this is just your opportunity to write a little blurb about yourself so recruiters can have a little sense of who you are. So, have fun with it. Of course, keep it professional, put a little bit of your personal flair into it. And, don't be afraid to throw in a couple like humble brags in there. Because again, you're just showcasing yourself, and that's what your LinkedIn profile is all about. It's showcasing you, who you are, your skills, and your experiences. And speaking of which, we're making our way down to the experience section. So I mentioned earlier that when it comes to the skills that you can add to your profile, you can either have just like a generalization of all the different skills and software or you can elaborate on what specific skills and software you use in each individual job experience. So in my case, this is one of my most recent work experiences, although it's not really work, it's my volunteering that I do for Latinx Animation. So I've been with them for like a little over a year, and I mostly make social media graphics for our Instagram page. So here under skills, I put Google Sheets because we use that to track the progress of when everything needs to be posted. Computer aided design, I tend to use Canva a lot and like different images and assets to assemble the graphics together. And it's graphic design because we're making these like little templates and visuals for the Instagram page. So I've included those skills, those specific skills and softwares relevant to that role. And earlier this year, about like a month ago, we had the Spark Animation Grant that was sponsored by Netflix. I was a screener for that, so I was one of the people reviewing the submission materials to help us narrow down the entries to choose our winners for the grant. So I also talked a little bit about what I did in that as well. Now, another piece of advice, and maybe this is more of just like a rule of thumb, if you have many years of experience, you can list as many job experiences as you want on LinkedIn. But when it comes to transferring what you're putting on your LinkedIn onto a resume, I would say stick to like the last 5 years or so. You don't have to put down every single work experience you've ever had in your whole life. And again, especially depending on what job you're applying for, you want to maybe highlight the job experiences that have transferable skills that relate to the role that you're applying for. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. Even though this right here is volunteer work and there is a volunteer section for it, I also included it in the experience section because, you know, being involved in my community and helping out Latinx in animation with the graphics that I do does count as some kind of experience. So I would definitely include that. If you have any mentorships or internships that you've been a part of, not only can you add it in those like organizations and volunteer work section, but you can most definitely add it in your experience as well. It definitely counts as experience. Another thing that you can also do in the experience section, aside from adding the skills and software, you know, in bullet points describing what you did in that role, you can also add links to media if it's relevant to that role. So once again, I included the work that I do on my YouTube channel as an experience, and I've included a link to my YouTube channel as well. You'll notice that I've sprinkled the link in multiple places throughout my profile. I have it at the very top under my name. I have it as a pinned link at the top, and I also included it here in the experience section. So that's totally fine, especially since it's something that I want to be visible and make sure that people can find it on my page and click on it. It's not bad to repeat it in a couple of different places. Once again, you'll notice that I included my volunteer work with Latinx animation, my content creation on YouTube, the mentorship that I participated in with women in animation, and some other industry relevant jobs, like when I freelanced as a script reader. Now, right below your experiences, you'll have your education section. So another thing I wanted to mention when it comes to education and seeking job opportunities in the animation industry. Fortunately, this is one of those industries where your degree, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but if you didn't go to school and you didn't seek out a degree, it's not the end of the world. Like, it's okay. You'll still definitely be able to find job opportunities because in this industry, your portfolio and the work that you do is what really speaks for you, not so much where you got your degree. So I did go to school. I have a bachelor's, so, you know, I've included it here. But if you don't have, you know, a college degree or anything to put in this section, do not fret. It's totally not the end of the world. You'll be okay. Earlier, I mentioned the skills section, so it's a bit of a ways down, but this is another area where you can list the skills that you know. And again, this may be more of a personal preference. You can either have it both in your experience section for each job or role that you've held, or you can just kind of have like this general section here towards the bottom. And if you've ever used Indeed for job hunting, you'll notice that sometimes in Indeed at the very top of the job description, there'll be specific skills or these little buttons or hashtags for skills that show up, and it'll be like, do you have this skill relevant to this role? And you can just click on it and be like, yes, I do. So this is kind of similar to that from what I've seen on Indeed, where if you look at the job board on LinkedIn, there'll be certain job descriptions that have like hashtags at the top of the job description, or I guess in this case, some of the ones that are listed here. And you can just, with the click of a button, tap on that particular skill set or hashtag and say, like, yes, I do have this skill, and it'll add it to this section right here. And if you wanted to edit this list, you can always click on this little pencil, and this shows up for every section on your LinkedIn profile when you're making edits and changes. You can scroll down here and see the full list of all the different skills, where you've posted them or where they're relevant to jobs on your profile. And there's also this button here that says demonstrate skills. So LinkedIn, I believe, merged with, I think it was lynda.com. Like, that sounds so long ago, but there used to be a website called lynda.com, and I think LinkedIn bought them out. And it was basically this online platform where you can take courses for different softwares and skills. I mean, there's a lot of platforms like that nowadays, but it merged together with LinkedIn. So if you were to ever to click on demonstrate skills, there are specific assessments that you can take in those particular skills. So it's almost like getting like a little mini certification or some kind of like gold star to prove that you're actually proficient in that particular skill. So it's another great way to, again, give you some credibility to be like, hey, like I really know my stuff. Here's an assessment that I scored 100% on. I totally know Excel and Python, or like etc. Thing that's important to point out, of course, you want to highlight skills that are relevant to the roles that you're applying for. Again, you know, those key creative softwares, the Adobe suite, the Harmony suite, the Microsoft Office suite, or ShotGrid if you're into production. Definitely highlight those, but I believe there is a limit to how many skills you can list on your profile. So you don't want to go crazy and start listing a bunch of random ones. Make sure that because you have limited slots of how many skills you can highlight on your profile, that you're purposeful in picking skills that are actually relevant to roles in animation, or have like some transferable skills from one role to the next within the animation scope. If we keep going a little further down, we have our projects section. So I talked about this earlier. This can either be capstone projects that you worked on as a student, or personal projects that you're doing in your own time. So here you can just write like a little description, a little blurb of what your project's about, the title for it, how long you've been working on it, and you can also include links or media in this section linking back to your project if you have anything visual to show, like an animatic or some art or whatever it may be. In my case, once again, for the fourth time, I've added my YouTube channel because I do count that as a project. And I also have my original story that I've been developing for a couple of years in my spare time. So I've added that under my projects. And then under honors and awards, while I was in school, I did get to do like a mock pitch session where I got to pitch my concept for my own story to a bunch of industry mentors from different studios. So that was a pretty cool opportunity. We were like in this incubator room, and I got to experience a simulation of what pitching to executives would feel like, and I was a finalist in that. So even though I didn't end up winning, I still got pretty far, and I thought that was worth mentioning. So if you've ever been a finalist in any kind of contest or competition, I would definitely include that as well, because it's still an accolade that's worth mentioning. And I also earned a scholarship while I was in school as well to partially cover my tuition while I was in that program. So again, any awards that you've won, if you've been a finalist in something, if you've won a scholarship, definitely highlight that on your profile. This one may not be as crucial, but if you are multilingual, it does not hurt to mention that, because you never know. You know, animation studios exist outside of California. They're not just here. And you might end up working for an international studio someday, or maybe like a hybrid or remote opportunity with a studio in a totally different country. And you never know when having a secondary language may come in useful. So if you are multilingual, definitely mention it. It never hurts to know more than one language, for sure. And now this is the very last section, all the way at the bottom of your page, which will be your interests. So this depends on who you may be following on LinkedIn. Now, this was a concept that it took me a while to grasp, because for the longest time, I couldn't tell the difference between being connected with someone versus following them, because those are two totally different things. Like, just because you're following someone doesn't necessarily mean they're in your network, because they're two separate things. Don't ask me why. But if there's any, organizations or studios or companies that you're interested in, you can follow them. So that way you can stay up to date on when job opportunities open up, what projects they may currently have in the works, etc. Just so you can kind of stay more in the loop and be up to date, especially with companies that you may be interested in working for. So those interests will show up here at the bottom. So I think it's important to align your interests again with where you want to be. If you're seeking jobs in animation, definitely try to follow as many studios as you can on the platform. And that doesn't just go for like the major studios that everyone knows, you know, like your Disney or your DreamWorks or Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, etc. There are so many indie and upcoming studios that are smaller that kind of get overlooked. So I would definitely see if they have a LinkedIn profile and follow them as well and include that in your interests. So all in all, hopefully you're able to either add your experiences, or if you're somebody who is still trying to break into the industry and doesn't have like animation studio experience, you're able to create those experiences for yourself by, again, joining organizations, giving back to your community, connecting with people, posting your work, share the progress of what you're doing and what skills you're honing in on, and share that on your profile. Because by doing that, again, you're showing recruiters your dedication to working on your craft, always being open to learning and growing, and really showing your interest and wanting to be a part of this industry. If you found this advice useful, please remember to give this video a like. It really helps out my channel and I really appreciate it. I hope that you learned something new by sitting down with me and looking over the different sections of the LinkedIn profile, and hopefully it's inspired you to sit down and take some time to really fill out your profile as well and put a lot of thought into it. Thank you all once again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!